We're going to talk about firewood and how you know if your wood is dry and ready to burn. Now, I've been cutting firewood my whole life, since I was a child. 7 years old is about when I started helping my dad. That was about 56 years ago. And now I cut and saw wood and have been doing it for like about 15 years. I do about 200 full cords, which is about 600 phase cords, for those of you that speak that language. It's a bunch of wood, so I've been doing this a long time. I also have fires a lot. I have a fireplace, I have a fire pit. Both my brothers heat with wood. My dad used to heat with wood. So I've been around wood a long time, and I've been testing and selling wood to customers that want really dry, ready to burn, right now wood. Because there are things that people say that can be taken a lot of different ways. Number one thing you'll hear is it seasoned? Well, what does seasoned mean to you? What does it mean to that guy? Seasoned means it's dry, ready to burn now. That's what seasoned means to me. Fully seasoned to me is what I like to say it, which means it's dry, ready to burn now. And that could take wood months, it could take wood years, depending on what kind of wood and what size it is, or how it's split, or how you store it, where you store it. All those things matter. We're going to talk about it. So there's lots of ways that you can test your firewood to see if it's dry and ready to be burned safely, whether it's for a campfire or in your stove or in your wood boiler or in your fireplace, because you generally want to burn dry wood. That's the favorite kind of wood, is dry wood. The good thing is all wood burns, but you want it to be dry, which means you want your moisture content to be below 20%. In the teens is generally where you want to be. There's probably a dozen different ways to test your wood. Easiest way is to cut it, split it, and then stack it or pile it and let it dry for a couple years. Time. Use your calendar. Just date when you split it and pile it or stack it. Just have it so that you know it's a year old or 2 years old or 3 years old. If it's 2 years old, it's probably going to be good. The next thing you can do, obviously, to make sure it's going to be good, is once it's dry, is to put it either into a shed or stack it or pile it on pallets and have it so the top is covered so that it can still breathe. But time is the biggest indicator. The next indicator a lot of people say is to take two pieces of wood like this, whack them together. If it sounds high-pitched like that, it's kind of an indicator. But I've had some very wet, moist, green wood in stick form or like this, and you hit it and it sounds pretty good, but it was freshly cut. So unless you know every species of wood that you have in your area, what it sounds like when it's completely dry and what it sounds like when it's green, and you do this all the time, you're probably not going to be able to tell. Another way you can tell is by the weight. Super light, you can tell. If you take a piece of wood this size, which is kind of a standard size for what most people want to burn in a fireplace, fire pit, small wood stove insert, things like that, this is kind of a standard size. If you can tell just by lifting it, if you've got a piece that's this size, that's twice as heavy as a piece the same size, you can kind of tell, oh yeah, this one's really heavy, this one's really light, this one's probably going to be drier. That's another indicator. Another thing you can do, take a couple chunks of wood, make a fire. And if you see that there's steam and there's bubbles and it's moisture coming out the end of the wood, because as it heats up, the moisture will boil off or burn off in the form of steam, and your smoke will be very white, you'll see that, but you'll hear it sizzling and snapping and maybe popping a little bit, and you'll see it bubbling, and you'll notice steam coming off the wood. That means it's not dry. But if it burns really clean, without a lot of smoke, without a lot of sizzling, without a lot of water and steam coming out the ends, the end grain here is where it'll come out of. If you don't see that and it burns great, that means it's pretty good. So all those ways work. But there is one scientific way that's the fastest and easiest, and it's pretty cheap to do it, and it's a way to test a whole bunch of wood. And this is the tool. It's a moisture meter. There's lots of different brands. You can get them for about 20 bucks to 50 bucks to a couple $100. They all work. I've got 6, 7 of them. They all work. It doesn't matter. All it is it's a meter that runs off a battery, and there's a couple prongs, and some of them do it without even going into the wood. And you do is you turn it on first of all. Most of these run on a 9-volt battery. You stick the prongs into the wood, and it'll show you in a percent how much percent moisture is in the wood. This is 11.5. But that's on the outside. I did not split this open. The best way to do it is to split this in half, test the inside, because you want the inside to be dry. So we're going to stick this into the end grain here, and it says 11.5, 10.5, 10%. But I'm going to split this in half and test it. Now this wood right here was cut and split about 2 months ago. Yes, 2 months ago. This is white pine. And there might be some red in here too. There's white and red in here. But pine dries very fast. It's a very porous wood, a very light wood. When you first split it, it will be kind of juicy and wet, but it dries extremely fast. Now there's lots of kinds of wood that dry very fast. And there's also several kinds of wood that dry very slow. Generally, all of the oaks, doesn't matter if it's white, red, black, any type of oaks are going to dry slower than most any other kind of wood. Now there's also some of the heavier, more dense hardwoods that will dry slow also, and that's pretty much any of the nut producing or fruit producing trees. Trees that have a crop, so nuts and fruits, things like that. Those will generally dry slower. Another way to have your wood dry faster, besides being out in the open, in the sun, in the wind, off the ground, is to put it in a kiln. Not everybody has a kiln. It's a box basically you put the wood into, and it heats it up and it pumps air through it, and it forces the moisture out of the wood through heat. But most people are going to do this. They're going to have the wood stored somewhere where with the time and the wind and the sun can do its thing and it can dry it out. Now if you take a piece of paper and you get it completely wet and you set it, say, in the sun on like a sidewalk or a driveway, probably if the sun's hitting it and it's a summer day like it is today, it's going to dry in a matter of probably minutes. It can be completely soaking wet. In a matter of a half an hour, it's probably going to be dry. Wood isn't the same because it's thicker. The thicker it is, the slower it will dry. And that's why a moisture meter is a good way to test it, because you can take a small chunk like this, split it in half, or you can take a round like this that has not even been split yet, split it in half, test it on the inside, and it'll tell you how much moisture is in it. Now I can tell this chunk of wood was left over from when this was cut and split. And I can tell by lifting it, this is very wet. It's very, very heavy. And it just happened to have got left out. But I'm gonna split this open, and we're gonna check the inside of it. We're gonna split this open so you can see the difference that only 2 months makes. And that's all the longer this has been cut and split. And then we're gonna test a bunch of other wood that I have here, and I'll tell you how long it has been cut and split in drying, and different species that we have. We're gonna go around and do that today. And like I said, moisture meter, you can get them on Amazon, you can get them just about anywhere, 20 bucks, they all work. All it does is it measures the amount of resistance between the two prongs. For instance, I'm gonna stick this into my skin a little bit. I happen to be about 30% moisture, 28%, something like that. I'm sticking it in so it's almost breaking the skin. It tests the resistance between it, and the more moisture there is, the easier the electricity flows between the prongs. That's basically all it is. It's pretty darn simple. Let's do some splitting and we'll test this wood. Okay, so this first one is a piece that has been split for, like I said, months, at least 2 months now. This has been cut and split and sitting out in a bin. So we're gonna chop it in half and test the inside of it. Okay, so we split it in half. Here's the inside. I can feel it's quite dry. Now that's another way you can test wood. You can feel that. If you feel moisture, it's generally not going to be dry. One way to test moisture real easily is to put the wood actually against your lips, because your lips can feel moisture way before your hands can. They're much more sensitive. So it looks like you're kissing wood, but it is an easy way to feel the moisture. And if it feels dry, it's generally dry. Here's the wood. Here's the moisture meter. We're going to pull it out, turn it on, and on the out, I'm going to do the outside first. The outside says 11.5%. I'm going to test the end grain. End grain says 9%. And on the inside that I just split, this bright part here, I'm sticking it in, pushing as hard as I can. It is 12.5. So it is dry. 12.5. 12 on the outside. And the end grain, well, I can get them as far as I can. It's all about 8%. So this is a really dry piece of wood. Now, I'm going to take wood that was from the same tree, but it's not been split. It's been just sitting in a round, and it's been sitting out in the open with the rest of the wood. And we're going to test that next. It's got some knots in it here, so this might take me a few whacks to get it to where I can actually split it apart. There we go. Okay, so now testing the inside of this. I'm going to test just the inside because the outside doesn't really matter. I'm guessing, I'm going to guess, this is going to be in the 20 percentile. Okay, I'm wrong. Look at that. It's over 30%. 31, 30%. I'm gonna test another spot. Look at that, 30%. So that goes to show you this wood is from the same tree, same logs, cut the same time, but this was split and this wasn't. So that goes to show you the size of the wood. Now, one of the things a lot of people don't realize is bark on a tree is basically like skin. This is holding the moisture in, and yes, it will dry a little bit out of the ends. This happens to be a piece of white pine. It'll dry a little bit out of the ends. I'm gonna test the end here so you can see this. I'll stick that in as far as I can. Look at the end. It appears to be dry, 10%. I'm gonna test the other side, but I know the inside is wet. I stuck that in as far as I could get it, and it says 13%. So people would say, oh, that's dry. But remember, we tested the inside. That says 32.5% right there. So there you go. This is the way. One of these. Okay, so I went and I got a few other pieces of wood. This happens to be a piece of red oak. This has been cut from a dead tree now for, I think about 6 to 8 months. But about 4 months ago, it was cut and split. And it's been in the bin, in the sun, in the wind for about 4 months now. Now, it was partially dry when I got the wood because it was from a dead tree. There's no bark on it, so that's an indicator right there that it's partially dry, because when the bark comes off, that is another tell or indicator that the tree is drying. So I'm going to split this in half, and we're going to test the outside and then the inside. So we'll test it both. And I know this is probably not going to be dry. Now, here's another indicator, the color. See how washed out and white this is from being bleached in the sun? That's the color it should be. So you can see the difference in the color. Now I'm feeling this and I can feel some moisture. It's not terrible, but there is some moisture there, and it's got to grab my moisture meter here. Okay, so we're going to test the outside here first. Now, this is oak, so it's much harder to get the moisture meter. It says 8.5%. We're going to try the inside. And it is about 21%, so it's darn close to being dry. Let's test that outside again and just see what it says. Yeah, I got it a little farther. It says 11%. So that's the difference, 11% on the outside to 20% on the inside. So that means this wood is basically ready to go. So like I said, this is not real old, but because of the way I store it, it's in the wind and the sun, and it's constantly in the elements. Drying. It's not in the shade, in the woods, on the ground. It's in a good position for drying. So there's that. Now the next one I'm going to test is going to be this piece. This was just cut from a tree about, I would say, a week ago. It is a piece of soft maple or silver maple. So we're going to split that. Okay, so we split that open and I can feel it. It actually feels wet. It feels damp to my hand. So we'll grab the meter, we're gonna check the inside, and it says, remember this was fresh cut, it's about 20, almost 29%. There it is, 29%. So that's fresh cut. Now, once this is split, this will dry very fast, because soft maple dries fairly fast. Now that's another thing a lot of people won't tell you, is the species matters. Now here's a piece of hard maple. This is 2 years old. And I'm gonna test it from the outside, and it says it's about 8%. Well, let's split this one open and see what it says. So there it is. There's a fresh split right here. So this I know is dry. I've been selling this wood now for a year, so I know it because it's 2 years old. And it is on the inside 14%. So good piece of wood right there. Let's do one more. I happen to find this laying over in my wood. This is a piece of hackberry, and it was only cut in half, or split in half, I should say. So I'm going to split this and check the inside, but I know this piece is over a year old. Another indicator, see how dark this is on the end? When it turns brown or turns gray or black, that's another indicator that your wood is drying. I got it. All right, so let's take this and we'll test the inside of this. And survey says It is 15% about. Like I said, this one's over a year old. So I'll test the side that was not split open, and it says about 11%. I'm going to test the end grain, and it says 5%. I couldn't get through there. So I know this one is dry, so it gives you an idea what different woods read. And getting a moisture meter is the way to do it. It's an easy, quick, fast, simple way to test your wood. Now, another thing that will matter is how you store your wood. I have my wood in giant bins with the wood just stacked, put in loose, piled in loose. And I know because of the area I have here, we don't have trees for half a mile. It always gets sun when the sun is out. It always gets wind because it's always windy here. And if you're going to test your wood from a big pile, find a big piece and dig down into the pile a ways. Like dig down so you get down a few feet and test it. Don't just test the one on top. You don't want to test the stuff that's, say, down in the shade, down in this corner over here. So it's the spot that's probably the least dry wood. That's a good way to do it. But I have all this stuff in the bins, and I know how old my wood is, so I generally know if it's going to be good or not. But before I sell it and deliver it to a customer, I will test it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this today, is I have a firewood order for some wood, and I'll show you what we got. So we're gonna walk down over to where I got this wood that we're gonna sell. Like I said, I got lots of these bins. We got 9 or 10 different bins. Some of them are long, narrow. Some of them are great, big, huge rectangles. Some are squares. Depends on the kind of wood and where I have it that I'm putting in there, but you can see some of the wood we're walking past. But over here where I've got the trailer, here's an old pile. You can see how gray this is. This stuff is 2 years old. That's some of the oldest wood I have. This is locust, and it does take longer to dry like oak. So that's one of the things that you have to also know is the kind of wood you're looking at, how long it's been there, and what kind of drying conditions you have. So here you can see some of the bins going all the way down that way, and they're all over. But this is the wood that my customer wants today. This is pine, white pine. And like I said, this wood right here is the piece I was showing you earlier, has been here for not 3 months, less than 3 months, like about 2 months. That's it, since it was cut and split. And I know that because I shoot a video every day here in the wood yard, and I kind of looked back and I know this has only been 2 months because the guy that wants this wood called me yesterday, day before, and said, hey, I want some more pine. He is a guy that goes camping and he likes his pine. He says, I like the snap, the crackle, the pop. I like the flames. Hi, we want a big, bright fire. Pine is fine for that, I can tell you that. A lot of people are afraid of pine because it snaps, crackles, and pops, but that's what makes it fun. And it's good campfire wood, really good campfire wood. And that's what he wants. So that's what I'm delivering. Now, this guy always gets 3 loads a year. And he buys one early in the year, like now, middle of the year, and then the end of the year. And it's all for camping. And when he called me, he says, hey, I need some pine, I'm out. And I said, well, so am I, because I wasn't sure this was dry. I said, I'm gonna have to do a moisture test on it to see if it's ready to go. And if not, I'll have to bring in some mixed hardwood, which he was okay with. But this is what he wants, this stuff right here. So we are gonna load this into the little dump trailer right behind it there. It's about a face cord, a third of a cord. We're gonna throw it in, we're gonna go deliver it right now. There it is. The wood is in the trailer ready to be delivered. We're going to go down the road and do a dump. Now, a couple questions are going to come up because it happens all the time. People ask me, how come I don't use IBC totes to store my wood in? It's because I produce hundreds of cords of wood. I would need a minimum of 1,000 of these. 1,000. And they're $35 a piece, kind of on the low end, to as much as 50. So $35,000 to store wood in, and it's kind of awkward for me because I'd have to, in order to store enough wood in here, they'd have to be stacked, which would be great. It would look nice, it'd be very pretty, but it would take a lot of time. If I put it in loose, you lose about 30% of your volume or so. So I need more of them then. I put all my wood in the bins, it dries fantastic. I don't have to stack it, I just throw it in the trailer and go. The next thing that comes up, well, if this was in a tote, why didn't you just pick up your tote with a tractor with forks? Because I have forks, I could have strapped that on, I could have dumped it out. I would have had to have taken these bars off to dump it. I'd had to have gone and got the tractor out of the barn, put the forks on, did the conversion, and then came over here and dumped it. About the amount of time it would take to go do all that, I got it thrown off. And I don't know about you guys, but I need exercise. This is my gym. I don't know anybody that gets too much exercise except maybe David Goggins, if you know who he is. This is about the only guy I know that gets too much exercise. He's the only one on the planet that I know of. This is good for me. That took 10 minutes, maybe. It's my exercise. Now we're gonna go do a dump.